This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
You know, I was going to ask Greg to send me, as they say, constantly across the pond so I could cover this game, but I just had a feeling that Bedard was going to shut that down. So I did not even ask. But here we are, both of us in New England to cover the Patriots versus Jags out in London coming up on Sunday morning. First, let me tell you about Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. And you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. All right, let's start with the headlines, Greg, as we do each and every podcast. Of course, we lead with Drake Maye and his knee. What you hearing about the quarterback?
What I'm hearing is pretty much what everybody else is hearing, is that the the team doesn't really address the knee or people around the team. They just say he's fine. He's fine. I think that he tweaked something in the game. We saw him at one point limping. That may or may not have been tweaked again during practice on Wednesday, which led to Ben Volen reported it was an MRI. Nobody has shot that down at this point. Am I overly concerned? No. I mean, I don't love it when the third overall draft pick is already hurting after one game. I think he'll be fine. I did find it interesting that I was looking at him through my binoculars, and he's one of these guys, Nick, that like his pants they don't go over his knee.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have it. They're almost like knickers the way he wears them. And I thought that was interesting. Also interesting that he wasn't wearing a knee brace. We all know, Brady did that for a while until we all know what happened. And then after that, he always had a knee brace, at least on his front leg, his plant leg. So I'll be interested to see if there's any developments with Drake in that regard. I mean, I think the reports have been, at least before, with practice here in New England, that he didn't have anything on his knee. So that's a good sign, but I wonder if that sort of changes once we get to the games.
The pants stuff reminds me, as a Notre Dame fan last year, of Sam Hartman. Looked like he was wearing shorts on game days. It bothered the hell out of me for some reason. Ramondre Stevenson, running back. We all know who he is. Did not play last week, banged up with the ankle. He did travel with the team, Greg. He's likely, Mayo said today, a game time decision. If he does play on Sunday morning, how big of a lift could he be for the offense?
Oh, I definitely think it's big. I think that and it wasn't Antonio Gibson's fault, what happened with the running game, last week. I do think that the Patriots sort of need all their backs. They're all sort of complementary to each other, and Ramondre's, really the workhorse of the backfield. And, I think that brings a comfort. And I think, Gibson's a little bit more of a slasher. So having those two guys together, I think, is an asset for the offense. So yeah, getting him back would be a nice little boost, I think.
All right, let's talk about Gerard Mayo. He was with the media this week before they left for London, and he talked about changes, and he talked about some personnel changes. What kind of changes can we see, Greg, on Sunday? Your best guess as guys that could move around, dudes who might start. We did hear about Christian Ellis from DeMarcus Covington. Seems like he's the obvious one replacing Raekwon McMillan, but any other thoughts about some changes that we could see?
Yeah, I think it's going to be mostly superficial. I know Gerard talked about, quote unquote, sending a message. The only guys that I see that would really send a message to where people are like, oh, crap, they mean business right now. I think you're looking at a guy like Michael Wenu, who has underachieved since getting that big contract. He has not been to the level that we have expected that he's normally played at before the contract. But do I think they're going to do that? No, I think they're going to bump him out to right tackle. I think we heard today that Layden Robinson is going to play.
Yeah.
So I assume that's going to mean Owenu to right tackle, Layden back to right guard, where he got off to a fast start, but then, sort of slumped. And I think Mayo talked about like a wall. Sometimes that happens, and maybe he just needed a breather as a young guy. And, Lowe's going to be out. So I would expect DeMontre Jacobs to switch back over to left tackle. So another, line combination here. But, you know, benching a guy like Owenu would definitely send a message. They're not in that circumstance where they can do that because they don't have enough good as much as Mike has underachieved this year, he's still one of their better offensive linemen. So what are you going to do? I would probably reduce Jalen Polk's role. I
Yeah.
would probably put him down to, probably third or fourth on the depth chart. Just get back to basics, give him a few certain packages that he's part of just to sort of reset him. I would put KJ Osborne.
I was waiting for you to say Kendrick Osborne. That would have come full circle.
Exactly. I was getting there. I would put KJ Osborne out there. I know he hasn't been great, but he's a very professional receiver. He does what he's supposed to do. He blocks really well. I still don't think Kendrick Bourne's at a point where he's ready for a full workload. So maybe, Booty and Osborne are the starters. Kendrick's next, and then Jalen Polk. On defense, I think it would send a message to bench Keon White, who I think had some run gap issues in this last game to go along with his pass rush discipline and penalty problems before that. But again, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Right.
They don't get enough pressure as it is. He's the one guy who does get consistent pressure. So, what are we really talking about? I mean, I do think Raekwon McMillan will go to the bench. As you said, Christian Ellis will get a bulk of those snaps. We see Taki involved more. A guy that I think that you could talk about benching or reducing his role, Kyle Duggar. Do I think that's ever going to happen? Not in a million years. And so really that's about it. I don't think there's a whole lot of changes that they can make to all of a sudden makes, sort of shock the locker room into, okay, our jobs are on the line, all that stuff. I just don't think that stuff's going on down there.
It's crazy to think that this is week 7 and we'll see the 7th different offensive line combination this season start a football game. The injuries have been borderline comical. These guys just can't find continuity up front, and it's killing them. I'm not telling you they'd be great or terrible. I don't know, but the envisioned offensive line never came close to coming to fruition from what we saw in camp when they went 11 straight practices with, Lowe at left tackle, Chooks at right tackle, Owenu at right guard, and David Andrews at center, and Sidy Sow at left guard. It's just an abomination of throwing guys in there and waiver claims, and this dude was claimed and fourth left tackle and fit. It's madness. As far as the changes, Greg, how about scheme wise? I think you look offensively. I've talked about this. I believe you've talked about this. Andrew Callahan has talked about this. Pop Douglas is this team's best receiver, but the issue they're running into is that their most efficient offensive grouping is 12 personnel. They don't want to play Pop in 12 personnel because he's not a big dude. He's not going to block, et cetera, et cetera. Could we see them move to more 11 personnel and maybe last week's fumble from Austin Hooper and the fact that, he hasn't made a huge difference in many of these games? The two plays that I remember the most is, him blowing the block on the field goal attempt and him fumbling the football last week. Could we see more 11 personnel from Van Pelt on Sunday?
I guess we could. My issue with that would be that I think making that kind of move is a little bit fantasy football to me. Is like, Pop's their most productive receiver and all that, but you got to start with, all right, how do we move the ball? How do we want to move the ball? How do we protect our quarterback? I mean, this team really needs to get back to being a run-focused team. And I do think that Drake Maye and his legs can factor into that. I think we'll see this week with Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. We're going to talk about the Jaguars more in a minute, but for all their difficulties, I do think they have a pretty nifty offense. I mean, I do think they also have a very dumb team that is prone to dumb mistakes and penalties. There's going to be a lot of like mirror images in this game, in a lot of different ways.
Great.
Yeah, so it should be a fun watch on Sunday morning. But I think given the line issues, and you're going to have even more this week where you're going to have to, well, at least you can, you could say, all right, this week, because we're bumping Mike out to right tackle, we don't need to help him against what's his name, Trevon Walker. We're going to have to help DeMontre. So, all right, one tight end, but who are we sending out? I just think I understand the sentiment by Andrew and others, and in theory, it makes sense. I just think where they are and how I want to actually see them keep the tight ends more chips, especially on third down, predictable passing situations. I'm not really worried about, the first two downs and whether Pop's out there. I'm worried about protecting Drake Maye a little bit more, protecting this offensive line. And to me, you still got to be a heavier 12 personnel team. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing them. I don't know where he is on, if he's on the practice squad or not. I just had that up. The tight end.
You're going to give me a Jaheim Bell here?
No, not Jaheim. I'm going to give you a Mitchell Wilcox, who got promoted.
Guy who can't catch the football?
Well, I'd rather him just block, like put him over there next to Javonte Jacobs, and let's see what happens. But I will say, for all the talk about last week and Drake's debut and everything, I don't know if we mentioned this, but the pressure rate was like 35%. It was much less than the season average, which was over 45%. And Drake even factored into some of that pressure on some of the sacks and everything. So maybe they're feeling better about it and can get a little, looser with the pass protection and get Jaheim Bell out there instead of a Mitchell Wilcox, but we'll have to see.
Not Cleveland. Sorry. I wrote Cleveland down in my notes because both teams have stunk this year. Jacksonville has been in London the last 2 weeks, Greg. Of course, the Patriots had a flyover. They got in at about 2 a.m. Do the travel differences make an impact, a big impact, slight impact? What do you think?
Oh, I think it has to. To be over there for the whole week. I mean, I think there was some chatter, and I don't know exactly what went down. Something about like, with the Hurricanes, like the Jaguars ended up like leaving Florida late for London. And there's some people who think that contributed to the way they played against the Bears. I don't, unless the Jaguars are at each other's throats, and there's been, talk about players quitting and, all that stuff, and Doug Peterson, unless they're miserable and at each other's throats, which could make that being over there together for a whole week even worse. I've seen that before. I've covered teams like the Dolphins in 2004 were staying in San Francisco for a week. And I think during that time, Dave Wannstedt got fired and Jim Bates was the interim coach. So that was an interesting time. If they're miserable and that they're teetering on the brink of self-implosion, then this is going to be bad, them staying over there. But if there's still a chance for them to put things together, and for what I see on film, I do think there's a chance of that, then this could be really good, and it could be a disadvantage for the Patriots.
One last one before we get to the actual game here. I want to ask you, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper were dealt this week. Cooper to the Bills, Adams to the Jets, which was the most predictable trade of all time. The trade deadline is November 5th. I know some Patriots fans are feeling froggy out there. Greg, do you think the Patriots going to feel froggy and pull a deal off?
So I've been asking about that. Do I think they're going to be sellers? In some respects. I mean, I think, some of the limited pieces, remember, even in the offseason, as far as, what do they do at different positions and bringing people in, we always talked about, all right, they're trying to get the the nucleus of a team together. And that means younger players with term going forward. And, if you sort of look at their roster, we already know Tyquan Thornton's available. I think we all agree there's not really a future here for him. I don't know what you'd get back for him, a 6th or 7th round pick. Pick swaps are big these days. We heard the other day, and this isn't a surprise, Mike Lombardi said that Joshua Uche is available for a 5th round pick. He's on a 1-year deal, very manageable money. If I'm a team like the Lions that just lost Aiden Hutchinson, Uche would be a guy I would come calling for, just a guy who just rushes the passer. And he, that's a guy, Nick, that I wanted to mention that I wouldn't be shocked if he was inactive for this game. I mean, he hasn't really had much of a role. He's done all right in this role, but if they want to keep him healthy for the trade deadline, maybe he's inactive on Sunday, and that's sort of a tip-off that they're getting closer to a deal. I think guys like KJ Osborne, Kendrick Bourne, I would be, maybe this has been him getting back has been sort of a showcase. We know the Patriots. We're going to throw him into the potential trade for Brandon Ayuk. Could the 49ers or Chiefs or somebody come calling for Bourne? I think that's definitely possible. On defense, aside from Uche, Jonathan Jones would be a guy I think that would have some appeal across the league for people who are a little bit short on cornerbacks. Now, on the flip side, could the Patriots find any talent to bring in? I think you're going to, in theory, it makes sense, but I think you're also looking at a similar situation where, those teams that are similar to the Patriots, 1-5, sort of out of it, they don't want to give up. And I've been asking about this. Like, nobody wants to give up their young talent. A lot of these GMs who want to say the coach is going to get fired and want to argue for their job, trading away some of your decent young talent is not a way to do that. So that doesn't really happen very much. Again, you're looking at older guys on short term. And, if I'm the Patriots, I'm only doing it if I know ahead of time that this guy will sign X extension to stay here for the next 2 years beyond this year, so that we know we're getting something. And you also don't want to get into giving up draft picks. I mean, like, for example, somebody tweeted at me and asked me about Deontay Johnson on the Carolina Panthers, the wide receiver. I love Deontay Johnson. He's on my fantasy team. He started to be productive since the Red Rifle got in there. So that's been really good. But, what are you going to give up for him? I mean, what are the Panthers going to want? What's the GM there, the former player?
Morgan.
Dan Morgan. Yeah. I mean, if you're Dan Morgan, who just got into this job right now, you just hired a new head coach. If you're going to trade off a decent young wide receiver, you're going to want to get something. I don't know, second, maybe at best, probably a 3rd round and then a pick swap. But if you're the Patriots, aren't you just saying to yourself, don't I want to draft my own guy? And again, anytime you get into these trades, we saw it with a core 4 in terms of signings. Anytime you start getting guys from outside your own building, you're running the risk of not knowing them and not knowing what makes them tick and that they could be a bust. So I could see the Patriots selling off a few pieces. I would be not shocked. I would be surprised if they found a willing team to give them a future building block.
We'll get into the game this Sunday coming up in a minute, but first, Greg tells you about Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, like I have this season. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. They're running a bonus. I love these little bonuses, a little free square, and I am using it for this Sunday, even though it's basketball. Anthony Edwards just needs to score 1 point for that square to win. NBA opening night, October 22nd. So when we get all our correct picks on the Patriots game, we just have to wait for Anthony Edwards to score 1 point on the 22nd, and we can watch the winnings roll in. So my picks for this week: And I feel a little bit better this week than I did certainly last week. I didn't know what to make of. Well, last week was okay, but Jalen Poole killed us. So we got the Anthony Edwards free square. Demario Douglas, more than 47.5 receiving yards. I think that this is with the lack of discipline on this Jaguars defense, I think Pop's going to be able to find some openings with Drake, especially on the move. I have Drake Maye I was going to go rushing total, but I decided to go more than 225.5 passing and rushing yards. I think Caleb Williams rushed for 47 yards last week against these Jaguars. I think they didn't do it much last week. I think this is the week they take advantage of Drake's legs, but I also think he's going to find some passing yards. And I have Hunter Henry, and I actually just realized I clicked the wrong box, but okay, we'll roll with it. Hunter Henry, less than 7 fantasy score. I have him on my fantasy team. I think it's actually going to be more than 7. So make sure you don't make my mistake. Go more than 7 fantasy points on Hunter Henry. I have Evan Ingram, the Jaguars tight end, for more than 39.5 receiving yards. I don't love the Patriots pass coverage over the middle. Ingram's really good. He had a boneheaded fumble last week, but he's a matchup problem. And I have Trevor Lawrence more than a half interception because he's a little sloppy with the ball. As much as I love Trevor, a little sloppy. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, let's get to the Patriots defense versus Jags offense. Lots of talent on this Jaguars team, which is weird to say for a team that's 1-5, but they are more talented than the Patriots. You got BTJ, Kirk, Davis, Ingram on the offensive side. How much, though, Greg, when you look at this team, because, of course, when you have a team that's 1-5 and you had a quarterback that was drafted number 1 overall and he has not necessarily lit the world on fire, especially compared to his expectations. But in reality, when you watch this team, how much of the offensive inconsistencies are on Lawrence and how much of the offensive inconsistencies are on the other guys?
I would say, I'll put it this way. I think that Trevor definitely shares in it. He reminds me a lot of the more I've watched him, and I haven't watched him a ton. I mean, it's the Jaguars. Why would I watch the Jaguars? But I did watch the film against the Bears. And it seems similar to some of the other things that I've seen over the years. He reminds me a bit of Andrew Luck, which is, and I think basically Trevor Lawrence was talked about as sort of the next generational quarterback since Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
And, Andrew Luck, and I don't know how people remember him, but in actuality, Andrew Luck was really good. And he was really athletic and he could run and really played smart most of the time. But to me, I thought he just made too many mistakes. There were too many interceptions, too many strip sacks. I just didn't. I think he was a really good quarterback who maybe with better surrounding talent and better coaching could have been an all-time great. And I see that sort of with Trevor Lawrence. Now, I would put he's certainly part of the problem. He threw a terrible interception. I don't know what he was looking at last week against the Bears. It was very similar route concept to what we're going to see, what we see a lot of with the Patriots. It's, spot routes and, little slants over the middle, like typical West Coast stuff. And he threw it like right to the linebacker. I don't know what he was looking at, but you see spurts of that in games. He also makes some tremendous throws. I still think he can run. He throws the ball really well. I would say his accuracy on the most part is pretty good. And I like Doug Peterson's offensive system. They will scheme up a lot in the run game, in the pass game. I just think there's just that whole outfit is inconsistent. I don't think that they're very smart. Like I said about the Ingram fumble, I mean, that was they open up the second half. He's like, wide open, a 24-yard gain, and he fumbles the ball, and he doesn't need to. He was fighting for more yards and just put the team in a terrible spot. I mean, you see some of the young wide receivers, with some route issues, some drop issues. But I think that this Jaguars offense is gonna pose problems for the Patriots. I think that Peterson over the years has kind of had the number of the Patriots defense, and we know it's a little different. Bill's not here anymore. Remember what he did in the Super Bowl with the Eagles. In my mind, it seems like the Jaguars offense with Peterson, as long as he's been there, has always been decent against the Patriots. I think he understands the rules of this defense. So that scares me, along with their extra prep time being over there in London. I love Bigsby, the running back, because Etienne is dealing with a hamstring injury. He practiced the other day. Is he going to be answer the bell? I don't know. He's a dynamic talent out of the backfield, but I think that Tank Bigsby is the type of guy. He's a workhorse that can do inside, outside. He's tough to break down. And the rookie wide receiver, Brian Thomas, a guy I loved in the pre-draft process. It would have been a guy that I would have loved to see the Patriots get and pair with Drake Maye if they could have traded up for him. I don't think that was in the cards, but I can't wait. I want to see Gonzalez against Brian Thomas, because that's two really talented young guys who could be really good for years to come. Ingram's good. I think their offensive line is pretty good for the most part. Right tackle Anton Harrison is sort of the weak link over there, but I'm a little fearful for this matchup for the Patriots defense against the Jaguars, because I do think they're pretty good. It's just a matter of, do the Jaguars just limit their mistakes? If they play mistake free, this is going to be a tough game.
Couple thoughts. The wide receivers, the issue for the Patriots, I think, especially aside from the natural talent, but the last time we saw the Patriots play against a team that had bigger wide receivers and the Pats try to go man, they got smoked. And it was Aaron Rodgers, of course, different world than Trevor Lawrence, but it was, hey, look, if you're going to play man against our wide receivers, you guys don't have the biggest corners in the world. We're going to get rid of the football quickly, and we're just going to let the wide receivers make some plays with their size. And Gabe Davis is 6'2". Brian Thomas Jr. is 6'3". So you could see some elements of that play out on Sunday morning. The other thing is the run game, Greg, of Jacksonville. It's interesting. They're 12th in success rate in the league, and they're actually second in yards per carry. But when you look at the details, it's not really the offensive line. I go back to like week 1, where the Patriots had a great rushing attack against Cincy, and a lot of people looked at the yards after contact stuff. I mean, the Jags, they have the 4th worst yards before contact per carry in the league. So their running backs are getting hit pretty quickly, under 1 yard, 0.85 yards is when they get that contact. So what's going on? Well, if you look at their rushing yards after contact, they're first in the league. They're averaging 4.5 yards per carry after contact. They're third in rush yards over expected. So that tells me their running backs are making plays. So you got to watch out for that. Those are two things.
Yeah, I have them as 6th offensive total rush EPA. They're 26th in pass. So, for a Patriots team that's sort of been dealing with some issues on the ground, this is you're a little bit fearful of what might happen.
All right, before we get to the Patriots offense and Drake Maye against this Jags defense, Greg, tell the fine people all about our friends at Game Time.
The NBA season is here. You love to be there. I know Nick does. Got to be there in person. Get all the energy, all the chants, all the music, all the glitz, all the glamour. You got to be there in person. And to be there, you got to go check out Game Time. Game Time has a great feature called Game Time Picks. Filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Love the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. I hate that stuff. I love the seat views. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. I was just checking out the Game Time app. Obviously, the Celtics opener against the Knicks, a little bit pricey, but good deals over there if you want to go check it out. I was checking out. I see if you want to do this, and I've done this before, it's a cool little trip. Celtics at Wizards on October 24th. Just take the train down, go down there. You can come down and back the same day if you want. I've done that before, where you sort of go out after the game and then take like the 6 a.m. train back if you want to be hardcore. Section 109, row S, all in pricing, $148. There's also an amazing deal if you just want to get in. Upper 414, $57. So if you want to just take the train down and go see the Celtics, go check out the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
It's Drake Maye time. For the second straight week, he gets to start against Jacksonville in London. I'll say it again, Jaguars defense, they do have some talent, but man, oh man, they have awful, awful numbers against the pass, Greg. I mean, you look up and down, 30th in pressure rate, 31st in pass rush win rate, 30th in EPA play action, 32nd in total DVOA, 32nd in EPA per drop back. They have been absolutely thrashed through the air. What's the problem for them defensively against quarterbacks?
You're absolutely right. They are talented. They have a couple of really good edge rushers in Trevon Walker and Josh, now Hines-Allen,
Yes,
on the edge. Not much on the defensive interior. You have Devin Lloyd at linebacker. The safeties aren't much. What I see, Nick, and a lot of this is based off the Bears game, they are completely undisciplined and over-aggressive. So that's the good part. My question is, and we saw the Bears take advantage of this, and, not to get sort of philosophical here as far as, and I hope people can follow me on this. So, we heard all the talk about Alex Van Pelt wanted to install the wide zone and the boot action. And basically the point of that is to get the offense or the defense going side to side. And I've started to read the book by Michael Silver about Kyle Shanahan, which is fascinating. And if you want to know about sort of the origins of the wide zone, there's a lot of talk about Mike Shanahan and how he sort of took the West Coast to the next level. But be that as it may. But I do recommend the book. So far, it's a very interesting read if you want to see how the NFL got here to where they are on offense. But so we saw them wanting to do this, and it's definitely, in theory, it's definitely a good thing to do. And it opens up things in the passing game. It opens up things in the running game. And we saw the Bears last week. If you watch them on film, it was all wide zone, back and forth. That's what they were doing. And the Jaguars are just over pursuing this way. They're leaving gaps. So, the way Alex Van Pelt started this season, you would say, okay, well, this is a good matchup. The Patriots can take advantage of this. The problem is because of the difficulties on the offensive line, they've had to abandon all of that because all the pieces are changing. You need to work on wide zone is all about, timing and execution. And when you have different guys in there and guys who don't really fit, like Michael Winu at right tackle doesn't fit. Ben Brown at center now doesn't fit as far as the running game. He's fine. He's really good in pass pro. The DeMontre Jacobs at left tackle, not an ideal fit. Now, Michael Jordan at left guard, he's probably their best wide zone guy. But the point is, the Patriots right now aren't spreading the field horizontally in the run game or the pass game, which is what the Bears did a great job of. They stressed the Jaguars. They exploited the Jaguars. The Patriots are now playing basically in like a phone booth, the way that they're playing right now. And so, yes, the Jaguars have had a lot of issues in the secondary. I do think that there will be some things there for the Patriots. It's just they have to figure out, all right, well, how are we going to take advantage of it? I mean, I think one way to do it, and we did see it last week with the Bears, they're going to have to involve Drake Maye in the running game. I think this is more of an RPO game. That's one way you can do it without doing the wide zone. If I were Alex Van Pelt, I would run this game almost probably exclusively RPO. I think it takes advantage of Drake Maye. I think it gets the Jaguars moving around and falling for things that aren't there and play action. But I do think that Drake Maye's legs will be a lot more active in this game. And if that doesn't happen, I don't know how much the Patriots are going to be able to duplicate sort of what the Bears did the week before.
You look at the offensive line, too. You mentioned this earlier. Owenu moving back to right tackle, it looks like. Jacobs at left tackle. You're going against those dangerous defensive ends. Hopefully, I mean, I'm tired of saying it. I'm tired of hoping. But for the love of all that is holy on this earth, Alex Van Pelt actually helps Jacobs at left tackle this weekend more often than he has in the past, especially on third down.
Yeah.
But I have no hope of that because Van Pelt has stunk at doing so. So when you look at what they could do, you just mentioned the RPO stuff, Maye with his legs, of course, the knee injury. How much does that play? Will that impact Alex Van Pelt's play calling? Will he want to utilize Maye less with those kind of designed runs and some of those other things that we talked about? We'll have to wait and see. But I think everybody wants to know, Greg, against this defense, what should the reasonable expectations be for Maye on Sunday morning?
Well, I mean, look, and let me also point out that if I'm Alex Van Pelt along with the RPOs, I'm using multiple trick plays in this game. This is the type of dumbass defense that we've
Does
seen.
he have those, Greg? Does Alex Van Pelt have trick plays? Because we have talked about the lack of creativity. Is he going to bust out like is his trick play bag from like the 1960s? Is that what we're going to see, or are we going to see
probably?
Some new stuff?
We did have that lateral.
Yeah, we did. We did.
But I want to see some cool double reverses and all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't mind seeing if it's Ramondre or Antonio Gibson, a halfback pass, maybe back to Maye or something. This is the type of game against this type of defense where, look, if you can't get them moving sideline to sideline with your run game, which I don't think they're going to be able to do, then you're going to have to, pull everything out of the bag. And, I don't know what you're waiting for and, help your quarterback out. But as far as Maye, I just want to see Maye. I just want to see Maye limit the mistakes. I want to see him, be a little bit more accurate. The decision making, I thought last week was a good, solid start for Drake Maye. We certainly saw the play, the playmaking ability. I'll be interested from now on to see, now that it's on film, how do teams start to play him? Are they going to spy him more? I had an NFL source told me that they thought the Texans were sort of screwing around at certain points in that game with sort of their man coverage, even on like the booty touchdown. Why would you do man coverage, with the safety all the way on the other side of the field? So I'll be interested to see if the Jaguars, make Maye beat them and make them go down the field. But I just want to see improvement. I want to see him to be more comfortable, every game. So if he makes 11 plus plays like he did last week, that's awesome. Now let's get the mistakes to more in like the 11-10 range, and all of a sudden we're talking something. So I just want to see him make progress every week.
All right, we got your pick coming up, but first I tell you, BSJ, $50 for the year. Incredible work by Bedard and Giardi, so check those guys out. Also, we've told you about Prize Picks. I remind you, CLNS is that code that you can use to get $50 instantly when you play $5. And Greg also told you about Game Time. And I'll tell you once again, you can use that code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. All right, this week's pick, Greg, we look at the record so far for you and I. How about that grammar? Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. I'm 4-2 on the season against the spread. Greg is 3-2-1. We are both 4-2 straight up. Interesting number this week. You go back to last week, the Texans were 6.5-point favorites. And the Texans are seen as a much better team than the Jags, but yet you've got the Jags as 6-point favorites in this game in London. The over-under is 42.5. I ask you, old sage of the football world, Greg Bedard, what's your pick, bro?
So I do not have a good feeling. I don't have a strong feeling either way on this game. I can't believe how the line, first of all, it opened at 4.5 and now it's up to 6. And you know this betting world more than I do. I don't know. Does that say anything to you? Like, is it just that is the money coming in on the Patriots and they're trying to get more people, or is it the opposite?
Well, when you got money coming in, that absolutely sways the line. So if the Jaguars were 4.5-point favorites and now they're 6-point favorites, I think that would tell me the Patriots were getting some of that money. But I could be totally wrong on that. The ins and outs of those kinds of things, I get confused by them. So I apologize to everybody out there, but I'm as confused as Greg at some of that stuff.
We're easily confused on this pod. I think that's the bottom line.
That's why people love us or hate us.
Would I be surprised if the Jaguars blew out the Patriots? No. Would I be surprised if the Patriots blew out the Jaguars? No. And Doug Peterson's fired coming back from London? No. So, and as you can tell, I haven't given this a lot of thought. I wrote down the point spread and all that, but I didn't really think about what my pick would be. 6 points is just too much to me. So I think the Jaguars win the game. I think they save Doug Peterson's job for a week. I'm going to go Jaguars 27, Patriots 24.
So you got Jags 27-24. Before I get to my pick, I have an example here. If the Kansas City Chiefs were -3.5 in a game, and then 3 days later they were -5, the line moved from 3.5 to 5. That means the Ravens became a bigger dog. In this case, it's likely that a lot of people bet on the Chiefs when the line opened. Yeah. So there you have it. When the line goes, so people putting money on the Jags. And then it moved up to 6.
Okay.
Because people said they're way too much, it's way too easy of a favorite.
That makes sense.
I feel exactly the same as you do about this game. I hate predicting this game with every fiber of my being. The Jaguars could be like, look, we're out, Cisco, not the dude that used to jump around and have the dragon as his logo back in the day, the thong song. Is that what he did? Not the thong song guy. But Andre Cisco said last week that he saw a lot of quit from the team. So there's a lot of people angry at Doug Peterson in Jacksonville right now. They thought they had a good team. They thought they should be there in the hunt for a playoff spot. They're 1-5 with their season about to tank. I don't know what to expect from the Jaguars. I mean, are they like, geez, we've been out here in London for 2 weeks. This team's not good enough. We don't like the coach. Dudes are quitting. They just made a trade this past week for a 6th-round pick in 2026. They're selling pieces off. So where are they mentally? Because if they're not there mentally, you're going to see a ton of mistakes again and a ton of undisciplined play. And for the Patriots, I mean, now you got a week of film on May. You're making the travel over to London. You have all of the stuff that continues to happen with Barmore. It's just this game is really difficult to pick. I'm going with the Patriots. I'm going 24-20. So same kind of range as you as far as points go. So we both bet the over. So I guess the takeaway from this is if you're going to take a bet, take the over, because Greg and I think there's going to be some points scored. But I think Maye will make some more plays than Lawrence will, and it's not necessarily because May's better than Lawrence. It's because of the outfit. So I think this is the week that the Patriots put some things together, and they come away with the W, 24-20. Am I confident? Hell to the no. I am not confident in that pick. So that'll do it, folks. Hopefully you learned a lot today. If you didn't, maybe you were entertained. If you weren't, we apologize. We'll try to get better. He's Greg. I'm Nick. The weather's going to be great this weekend in New England. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you early next week about this game. Hopefully it doesn't suck.